first of all, thank you all for being here. And, like I said, I'm learning as I go. And at the same time, I wanted to make it so we could, have James talk to us and be something that people would be interested in hearing, as, recorded. So to start with, I know I thought we would just, Brett, I don't know if you need to leave at a certain point, or are you here?
I have probably another 20 minutes before I got to jump onto another meeting.
I would like to have, James, would you like to start with us? So Brett can hear you, is what I would really like to have happen. And also our committee folks, we will do something, we'll just we're ad-libbing a little bit here, but
well, if we're going to lose Brett in 20 minutes, should we let him give any kind of an update first?
Well, Brett, what do you think? What do you want? I would like, I just want everyone to be okay on the who's talking.
I have an update from City Hall and, a few rule changes, a few issues. And I can tell you that Alderman Page and I have had extensive conversations over the last few weeks. And I'm looking very forward to working with him. And so I don't want to say that I don't need to hear from him. I'm excited for you guys to hear from him. But this would be far from the first conversation that Mr. Page and I have had. And with that, I'll let the organization tell me how they would like the meeting to run.
Well, if you have anything of noteworthy from the Board of Aldermen for us, Brett, please let us know.
Certainly. So first off, thank you, Lori, and thanks to the rest of the board here. As I'm sure most of you know, if you haven't been living under a rock, we have a new mayor and several new members of the Board of Aldermen. Tashara Jones is the new mayor. We have a progressive majority on the board. It's a very fractured at the moment, progressive majority. So it's not I think it's unlikely that we're going to see, a steamroll come out and change, policy just in huge swaths, because I think when we count the people on the board, when we're counting votes, I think on any given issue, we're teetering right at that 15 number. These are kind of fractious relationships on any given issue. But now, for the first time since I've been down there, basically everything is a coin toss in between kind of the old guard and the new school. And so that's exciting for the city. I know James Page has replaced his predecessor, Tamika Hubbard, in the 5th Ward. And I know James put in a lot of work, Alderman Page put in a lot of work to make that happen. And in the conversations that I've had with him regarding rules and in the first kind of bites at legislation, he's been a welcome new voice to the rabble that we hear at City Hall. He has been cool, collected. He comes at it from a pragmatic perspective. I'm very much looking forward to working with him over the next couple of years, because I think that he brings a wealth of knowledge and experience that differs from everyone else who's down there. We also have Ann Schweitzer down there. We also have Sweet Tea Pill. There's several new members down there that have replaced some of the old guard there, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what's possible there. I've always thought that politics are the art of the possible, and it seems that over the last just a few weeks, what is possible in the city seems to have changed pretty drastically, and that's absolutely as a result of these folks' hard work. It's not anything that I've done; it's the work that they've put in, and so I've told them, don't get a new guide down at City Hall like happens to so many of us when we get down there. That their voice is every bit as important as my voice. That they represent 12,000 some odd people the same way I do, and that they should make their voice heard and learn how to throw their weight around and figure out how to make important change happen for the city. And I think that many of the new folks are really looking forward to getting into the mix, getting into the fray, and I think that is going to do great things for the city. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to the next 2 years with the new mayor and a slightly different vote count in the Board of Aldermen on the way we prioritize things moving forward. There's also been a couple of rule changes that we voted on very early on, both in that closed session that I know that many of you have heard about on the news, in the newspaper. There were dueling legal opinions about the legality, frankly, of a caucus meeting happening the way that it happened. From my perspective, I could have either not gone and then been a vote short on some issues, or have gone and encouraged folks to sue the city about it. I'm a big proponent that when there's as many of you know, I'm a lawyer by trade, so I'm not scared of the courts sorting issues out when there's no prior way of dealing with things. With Proposition D, now we're in kind of a new world in terms of what a caucus is, what a caucus looks like, and what legally is a caucus. And any lawyer you talk to, they're going to have their own opinion on it. And ultimately, it's something that will need to be sorted out in a court of law. It sounds like there's an attorney right now trying to sort that out in a court of law, who has brought suit against the city about whether or not the caucusing as was done was the way to do it. I eagerly await the court's decision and look forward to abiding by that decision moving forward. The way that it happened this go around, we got just under 48 hours of notice that we were going to be having a caucus, and about 24 hours beforehand, it came to my attention, at least, that there were some legal concerns about the way that we were caucusing. My big concern was that if a whole lot of folks that shared my concern did not attend the caucus, that folks would be able to change the rules in a way that would be disadvantageous for us moving forward. And so it's kind of a no-win situation. For that, I apologize. I've always tried to be as transparent as possible. And when you find yourself in a no-win situation, you just have to make snap judgments. And I did what I thought was the best play for the people of the 24th and for the city of St. Louis. Anyone who disagrees with me on that, I understand. And I'm open to that criticism. We did make a couple of rule changes. The first being that now all meetings of the Board of Aldermen are public meetings, meaning that anytime there's a committee meeting, that anyone who is interested in a particular piece of legislation can come before that committee and testify about their opinion in favor or opposed to that piece of legislation. Previously, we had some issues where we were having hearings and people would come down to try and tell us their opinion one way or another, and they were turned away because it was a committee hearing, not a public hearing. And I'm a pretty firm believer that if you take time out of your day to come to City Hall and tell us how you think about something, we should listen at the very least. So I was very much in support of that rule change. Additionally, there'll be another rule change, which I supported, that anyone testifying in front of the board now will have to go on their oath to testify. In the past, we've had people come and just lie to us in committee. And that if we're going to be relying on the testimony of individuals and really open ourselves up to that testimony, I think we need to be able to rely on it. And I think the best way to do that is to say, you have to tell us the truth. And so I don't think that the vast majority of people have any interest in coming in front of the Board of Aldermen and just telling lies. And, you know, frankly, in discussions that I had with my colleagues, I couldn't come up with another governmental entity that you go before and testify in front of that you don't go on your oath. And so we changed the rule there also. So now testimony is welcome at any given committee meeting, but you do have to go on your oath, which is a change in the rules. The committee chair can limit your testimony. In the rules, it says that there's a maximum of 5 minutes. I found in practice, oftentimes it's 2 to 3 minutes of testimony, depending on how many people are at the meeting. So if you do want to give testimony on any given bill, I would encourage you to do so, but to also understand that it's likely that you'll only be given, 3 minutes of time to do so. So try and be succinct and try and let us know how you feel, right off the bat, and then back up why, and then come back to why you feel that way. Because if you get cut off short, we ultimately do want to know your ultimate stance on things. I also, in the last session, before we broke sine die, so on the 19th, passed new air quality control legislation in the city of St. Louis. Mayor Jones, excuse me, I was about to say Mayor-elect Jones, but she is now Mayor Jones. Mayor Jones has indicated at least a willingness to sign this bill. It updates the air quality code for the city of St. Louis, and also the way that we handle asbestos abatement. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but it's my most substantial piece of legislation to date, to sponsor a 230 some odd page piece of legislation that updates the city's air quality control. So I'm pretty happy about the fact that it got over the finish line, and I'm eagerly awaiting the mayor's signature on it. I think it's going to be great for the city long term to in terms of equity, when we look at when homes get demolished, when multifamily homes get demolished and big buildings get demolished, the kind of particulates that go into the air and that people in the neighborhood breathe in. This is a major step forward in how we're handling that in terms of training the people who are going to work with those particular jobs, both in terms of them recognizing what they're seeing and recognizing the proper techniques to deal with it. I'm trying to legislatively bite off things that are good for the entire city, and we all breathe. And so I think that air is something that should be kind of across the board, something that we can all agree on. This went across with 19 votes. There were, I believe, 5 people who were not present in the meeting. So the vast majority of the board approved of it. There was some concerns regarding minority contractors that had been borne out earlier. And I'm happy to talk to anyone about who wants to get into the weeds there. Happy to discuss that with anyone. The last piece that I have really is Karen Clifford and myself have been in close contact regarding a lot of potholes, street lights, bulk trash issues. Earlier today, we sat down with the building inspectors. Moving forward, we're going to be sitting down with Captain Marks in an attempt to, particularly, and we spoke about this earlier, so I don't know if she can speak about it as frankly as I can, but given the recent Derek Chauvin decision, I think that we're at a reflection point in society on bridging the gap in between law enforcement and the community that so many of us have talked about for so long. And what I would like to do is sit down with more and more members of law enforcement and try to do my part in bridging that gap. And I know that many of the folks at SLMPD have been willing to try and bridge that gap on their end. And right now we have too many members of polite society who just do not see eye to eye with the police department. Too many members of the police department who do not see eye to eye with polite society. And I'm just trying to make sure to do my part there. So in the future, I would like to be sitting down with Captain Marks, once a month, twice a month, and just make sure that we're on the same page and that we're doing the same thing and that we don't silo the citizenry from the police department. And so that's something that I'm going to be working on moving forward. Again, happy to hear any feedback on that one way or another. But I think it's important that we try to take this kind of collective breath of relief from this most recent decision and not say that everything is fixed or that everything is broken, but realize that there's a massive, massive gray area in between and try and work on it, try and work on building that bridge and keeping accountability there, and just making sure that we have good working relationships in the ward with our brass and our rank and file officers. And ultimately, that's something that I have kind of planned out for the next few months and trying to sit down with both Captain Marks and some of the patrolmen and just let them know where we're at as a ward on several issues, and hear where they're at on things, and try and be part of the solution there rather than being part of the problem there. And that's something that I need your feedback for. I can't do it alone. So I would welcome any feedback there. I'm trying to have some difficult conversations with people, and it's something that it's part of the job, and I think it's necessary. I think it needs to happen, and ultimately I need your help in order to do it. So with that, I'll take any questions, concerns, comments, recipes, anything like that.
I got a few follow-up questions, if you don't mind. I didn't see a way to like raise my hand or anything like that.
Sure.
You covered a broad couple of topics that I just wanted to follow up for my own, just so I'm able to follow along. You mentioned the issue of the legality of the caucus. It's my understanding that caucus at the Board of Aldermen dealt with committee assignments. This is kind of a two-part question. If it's contested, how long would it take to get a ruling? And if it were, for whatever reason, determined that it was not the proper way to do something, does that mean that those committee assignments would be revisited?
So it's a very hard question for me to answer, and I think that part of it is because I'm a lawyer by trade. So when I get into litigation mode, the answer is usually maybe.
Well, I guess, I mean, are we talking about days? Are we talking about months? Is it we're gonna wait until the next session, and then by then it doesn't matter? I mean, that's kind of like the time frame is really what I was.
So an attorney called Chelsea Murta. She's a local attorney here in town. She has filed suit against President of the board, Lewis Reed, and I believe Clerk Kennedy regarding this caucus. And since the suit's been filed, I have no idea how fast a judge may be looking to rule on it. If a judge was looking to say that the underlying meeting, and I can tell you from being in the meeting, the vast majority of what we talk about in that meeting is who sits at what desk, and who is the secretary of who, and it's vastly, the vast majority is stuff that I would want more transparency for, but it's nothing like it's not the dark smoky room where things happen.
But the committee assignments are important, and I'm not really saying that I'm contesting any of those. I'm just wondering if it's being revisited.
The committee chairs go by seniority, and they pick the committee chairs, and so that became public very quickly. The committee assignments themselves, we don't have committee assignments yet. I have not been assigned any committees this session yet. No one, to the best of my knowledge, has been assigned to any committees yet. So that typically comes a few weeks after the fact. The president of the board has the authority to appoint and withdraw people from committees. So ultimately, I don't know how a judge may weigh in on this. I imagine, just given the historical deference to legislative branches, that if a judge weighed in and said that we were doing it wrong, that it would be more about how to do it in the future than the way that we did it this time. That being said, that's kind of me putting on my judge hat, and I'm not the judge. So the judge may think something very different. So I don't want to mislead anyone there, but there does seem to be a historical deference to legislative branches from the judicial branch.
And then a last follow-up, because I don't want if anybody else has questions, I don't want to, hijack the whole thing. But on the related note of transparency, the Board of Aldermen, as far as the rules go, you still have the ability to go into closed session if you're going to discuss things like personnel and things like that, right?
Yes, so the Missouri Sunshine Laws allow us to go into closed session under very specific circumstances. Like if we're discussing hiring or firing an individual that we hire as a board. So like, for example, our clerks and secretaries, we hire as a board rather than the city. So when we're doing that, we're discussing whether or not to retain someone. The state of Missouri has said that we are able to go into what's called a closed session in order to discuss those issues so that it's not public. That's and I'm going to pick on Alderman Page here just because he hasn't been there when we've had difficult decisions regarding personnel. But so if Alderman Page says, "Oh well, my secretary for the last 5 years is trash, and we need to get rid of her because X, Y, and Z," that and not that Alderman Page would ever say that, but just to pick on
certainly
someone.
not.
just to pick on him for a moment, that doesn't become part of the public record, that there is some and that ultimately is more for the personnel than it is for the elected officials. And Lori, you're muted.
Sorry, now I'm not. We've had a real problem with getting this to work for people to come to the meeting tonight, and I'm terribly sorry that this didn't go easier. But at the same time, I don't know, Carolyn, would you be able to? I don't know whether you start or what. I'm embarrassed, and I really wanted to.
Lori, I think at this point we just have to finish the meeting. I don't think we can worry about people getting to log on at this point, but let's just avoid repeating it in the future. We can talk about this offline after the meeting.
Okay.
And
yeah,
I'm also happy, if you guys want to do something in the near future and kind of have a repeat, I'm happy to do that as well.
Oh, I had a question, and this might be too. Is the idea that because our elections are nonpartisan now, that the alder people are no longer supposed to be affiliated with a party?
So I think that's part of it, and it's kind of strange because I am still an elected Democrat. Like I was elected as a Democrat for a 4-year term. So I'm 2 years into my 4-year term as a Democratic alderman of the 24th ward. We then had Proposition D pass, which put in nonpartisan elections. So everyone who got elected this most recent cycle got elected they got elected as independents. And so then that kind of threw a stick in the spokes of the way that we've always done things with caucusing as a party. And I don't have a good answer there, but I do think you've hit the nail on the head on what caused the kind of hiccup.
I feel like that whole proposition, nobody really knew what they were voting for. And I guess in some ways it's kind of too late, but it just is upsetting to me that it's had all these, and probably will have more kind of bizarre things coming out of it. But I guess my other question, and I don't know, you talked about now that we have more progressives in City Hall and everything, that is great. Is there any kind of sense of a progressive agenda I know, and I know that's, you know, a herding cats thing when it,
It certainly is.
is there at least a sense of like a few things that people do agree on, whether it's closing the workhouse or other things?
So I can tell you, in the most recent budget that I've seen put forward, just as of this evening, that the workhouse will be closed this year should that budget pass. Now, as far as the rest of it, I am eagerly awaiting a meeting with Mayor Jones, which I've been told will be happening in the short term here, where she's going to let me and, you know, Alderman Page and other folks know her legislative agenda, so that we can figure out what we can work together on and what we won't work together on, frankly, because you know, the progressive cadre is fairly fractured still. I think there's as many people on the board that call themselves progressive as don't, but that doesn't mean we move in lockstep with each other. So there's going to be certain things that can be done, and certain things that we're not going to have the votes to do, either because some of my colleagues won't support it or because I don't support it. And so it'll be interesting to see moving forward kind of where that window is that we can operate in and really get some good policy passed.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Brett? Well, I would love James to speak with us at this point. Again, we'll just keep going, and I appreciate you being here, James.
Well, if I could just cut in for a minute and say, you know, thank you all for having me. If any of you guys do have any more questions of me, please let me know. Austin, if you hear from any of your neighbors and they need anything, please let me know. And for Alderman Page, I look forward to working with you, and I know that this group of folks is going to love what you have to say. And with that, have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you. Thanks, Brett. Laurie, thanks so much for the invitation to speak with the 24th Ward Democrats group. And just so that the group knows, I want to take you back to a little bit of history. Laurie and I have known each other for many, many, many years. We worked together on the Obama re-election campaign in 2012 and beyond that point. Just to give you an idea, you may already know this, but you have a superstar in your midst. Laurie worked on voter registration during our campaign to elect not only President Obama, but let's go down the list of people we effectively helped to re-elect. Governor Jay Nixon, Senator Claire McCaskill, and at that point in 2012, every other single statewide Democratic candidate except for one. And that person was Susan Monte, who ran for lieutenant governor in 2012, and she lost to a centrist, populist, kind of moderate Republican. But other than that, we got a lot of work done. Speaking of work done, Laurie, I'm going to put you in the Wayback Machine for just a minute.
Uh-oh.
What we actually registered as Organizing for Action we registered 46,500 new voters in 2012 before the cutoff, which is always about 30 days before the presidential election. So we got a lot of work done. In addition to that, we advocated for the Affordable Care Act. And we hosted a total of 26 information events for the Affordable Care Act around the whole St. Louis metro area, one of which we hosted, and Laurie joined me in it, right there at the SIE, I always get it wrong because I'm always associating with Southern Illinois University, but the Service Employees International Union, right there on Clifton, right there in your ward. We hosted one of those ACA meetings right there in your community. So, we have a lot of history. So let's bring it up to modern times, and we'll make a few stops along the way. After we got President Obama reelected, I remained with Organizing for Action as the chapter lead for St. Louis, Missouri, and arguably the state of Missouri for the entire time that the organization was in place, from its official sunrise after the election campaign was over, after the inauguration, all the way through 2019, when the organization was sunset. And I served on the National Board of Directors of OFA. Along with that, we continued our work with the St. Louis Downtown Neighborhood Association, which I've served as executive director. I was reelected by a landslide, knock on wood, in January, and I continue in that role today. It's a 501c3 community service organization, which is totally different than an elected political office such as alderman. So at this point, I have continued to wear both hats. So then all of a sudden, the opportunity came to explore the idea of running for alderman. And I explored that very deeply, very thoroughly, talked with a lot of people. And I began to realize that I had a lot of support in my community. In downtown St. Louis, which the 5th Ward is a part of. And just a quick little geography lesson. Downtown St. Louis is made up of 4 different wards. Wards 5, 6, 7, and 19. 7 is Alderman Jack Coder, and that includes part of downtown out by the river and goes down through Soulard. 6 is Alderwoman Christine Ingracia, and that is a little further west and goes south. 19 is Alderwoman Marlene Davis, and that includes the western part of downtown west. Say that real fast a few times. And it also includes Midtown. And then there is the 5th Ward, which starts in downtown around Pine Street, like between about Tucker and 14th. And it goes north along the river and back across essentially St. Louis Avenue, crossing through Old North, stopping by Crown Candy for lunch, going out to North Florissant and across North Florissant, and then back downtown, which includes Carr Square. It includes Preservation Place, which used to be the old O'Fallon Park, and it includes Murphy Park. So it's a pretty large geographical area. Even though it's around 12,000 people, it's shrunk a little bit, but it's a large footprint. Some of the features of the 5th Ward that I'm sure you may or may not know about is that the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency has already begun construction on a new national site in the ward, in the 5th ward. There's a smidgen of it that crosses the line into the 3rd ward, but it's primarily in the 5th ward. Another major development in downtown, you probably are familiar with Square, with the credit card swipes and the like. And a lot of people don't know that Square's, and Twitter's, by the way, CEO Jack Dorsey is originally from the St. Louis region. He actually went to high school in one of the Park West schools out in the western part of the region. And he is bringing his National Square organization right into downtown St. Louis. He and his group have purchased the old St. Louis Post-Dispatch building on the corner of Tucker and Cole, and they are in the process of a complete gut rehab, and they're moving into that in stages. So there's a lot of things going on in the 5th ward. The 5th ward has historically in recent years been what they call a food desert. Didn't even have a single grocery store. Well, that has changed. We now have Greenleaf Market that opened up, I want to say a couple of years ago. It was before the pandemic started. Yeah, about 2 years ago. And they are in operation. There's also a new Gulf station and a pretty upscale convenience store directly across Tucker from the grocery store. So we're doing a lot of things in the 5th ward that I am extraordinarily proud of. Another thing that's happening is that we're building a medical center that will start fairly small and will be expanded into a small hospital over time. And that construction has already started. So I am bullish on the 5th ward, bullish on downtown St. Louis, and bullish on the city overall. I'm very optimistic. Now, having given you all of that, I got to give you a little bit of what Paul Harvey used to call, and some of us are old enough to remember Paul Harvey, the rest of the story. We have a number of things to address, not the least of which is crime in the area. And that affects essentially every single one of the 28 wards in the city of St. Louis, some more so than others. North side, south side, western part of the city, you name it. So that's one of the things that we will be, Brett and I and our colleagues will be working closely with Mayor Jones to reduce crime in the area. And I agree with the new mayor on one of the things that's critical that we do is address the root causes of crime. And we all know the big block items, poverty, jobs, all of that, schools. So those are some of the big block items that we hope to address going forward. Brent mentioned Chelsea Merita. And I gotta tell you, St. Louis is a big town. And I don't know if you've been following the census as closely as I have, but in the 2020 census, it just knocked my flip-flops off to learn that the city of St. Louis has shrunk to below 300,000 residents, according to the census. And that is not good, but I think that is correctable with programs that a lot of us are planning for development and to make life in the city more attractive. And I won't go too far down in the weeds, but I'll say that. But I wanted to share you another little small, St. Louis is a big, small town. Brent mentioned Attorney Chelsea Merita. And every time I hear that name, I go, wow, small world. Chelsea Merita, you remember me mentioning the Affordable Care Act information events we did around the region. Well, in the city of Northwoods, which is just barely outside of the city in North County, we actually hosted a city-wide Affordable Care Act information event at City Hall, and we flyered every single house and business in Northwoods, and we had a great turnout. And Chelsea, who was still in law school at that point, was an activist in favor of Affordable Care Act and other healthcare issues, expanding Medicaid and the like. She was my keynote speaker at that event. So we've been doing the work in the city of St. Louis and the St. Louis region for quite some time. As I kind of alluded to, I had the honor of managing all of North County and all of North City for the 2012 election campaign. And that's how I kind of got started. Let's go a little bit before the Obama era. Where did James Page come from? Well, I actually worked for the United States Postal Service for a total of 38 years. I don't say this proudly by any means, but it is a fact. Let's go down the list. I never sold a stamp. I never delivered a letter or a package. I did technical work my entire career, focusing on IT, finance, and accounting. It was a wonderful career, and it really set the stage for all of the many community service initiatives and then political work that I did afterward. So with that, I'll stop there for just a second and see if anyone has any questions for me.
I'm very curious, James, what do you see happening in your ward as far as involvement from the neighborhood associations? You told me that they were very involved in things that are going on, but that your ward organization hasn't really existed. What do you see about, having a ward organization that would function for, finding people to run for office, to do the variety of things that we do as ward organizations? How do you get people involved in something like that? Or how do you strengthen people getting involved? I don't know all the details about what went on up there, but it sounded like they never had them because it was not an open ward organization. So
well, there was going back, and great question. There was going back several years, but the ward organization kind of deteriorated over more recent years. We do still have some structure in the ward, and I'll just share some of them. The aforementioned St. Louis Downtown Neighborhood Association, that's one. There is a St. Louis Place Community Association that is up around St. Louis Avenue and surrounding residential areas. There is another organization called Citizens for a Better Fifth Ward and 78th District, which the majority of the Fifth Ward is in the 78th District. And I will tell you that organization, which I've been a member of for many years, has kind of been the seedbed, if you will, for people running for office. You probably have heard the name Rasheen Aldridge, a young man that I just call my son, not biologically, but I've known him ever since he was a kid in school, and I've been close to his family all those years. He is the youngest state representative in Jefferson City, and he represents the 78th District, which again is the majority of the Fifth Ward. I am extremely proud of the work that he has done, especially at such a young age. So that is one of the products of the Citizens for Better Fifth Ward and 78th District. I'm a member of that group, and I made my decision to run for a number of reasons, not the least of which was my affiliation with that group. So we do have a number of groups in the area that have spawned, if you will, some some winning candidates. But what we want to do, the new political entities, we want to strengthen those ward organizations and bring back a full ward structure. So we're working on that. Good question.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if anyone else, has any questions, but
I do.
yeah, go for it, please.
I'm just curious, and I know you're a new alder person.
Yes.
But I assume that based on your experience, I'm just wondering how hopeful you are, or how you see that we might get people all moving together in the same direction. Just kind of hearing Brett talk about, like, yeah, there's a sort of a progressive group now, but are they even, I'm worried about people spending time kind of fighting with each other instead of fighting the good fight together. And I know that you're new there, but I'm kind of wondering how you see that you might be able to help in that process, and how we might be able to help in that process. Does that make sense?
It does indeed. That is a wonderful question. And I'm going to kind of take off on something that my good friend Brett said. Remember, he was saying that he was alluding to the fact that in some issues, we had 14, 15 votes. Of course, it takes 15 votes to carry the day on issues before the Board of Aldermen. And the fact that we're teetering on that midpoint. We're on that teeter-totter, but we're optimistic that we can bring good legislation before the board, and the good legislation that benefits the majority of the city, I'm convinced will win the day. Now, well, you've heard the old saying, you never want to see sausages and laws being made. Well, there's probably going to be some vigorous discussion, even debate on issues before the board, but I am convinced that we are well positioned to get some positive things done and some progressive things done for the city. I will also admit that I am affiliated with the progressive wing of the Board of Aldermen. I'm one of 4 freshman aldermen. Ann Schweitzer is the other. Tina, and she actually uses this nickname in all of her official emails, Tina Sweet Tea Peel, whom you probably know, and Bill Stevens. The 4 of us are the freshman class of this election cycle. And we all work very well together. Tina Peel and I did a podcast the other day representing the freshman class. So we're all working together. We go to lunch together whenever we can. We actually meet, and I won't identify the addresses, but we actually meet in people's backyards and houses in South City and work on agenda, rules changes, and the like that we'd like to see. So I think we're off to a wonderful start, and it's going to be up to us to bring some of the old guard, and I say that with a big smile because I'm not by any means the youngest board member. I've been around the block for a long time, but I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to get some good things done in cooperation with our new mayor, Mayor Tashara Jones.
Thanks. That makes me very hopeful.
Thank you.
One of the other things I was thinking about is as a ward organization, what can we do? We talked briefly about this, but our ward is, you know, I want to get people involved. I don't want to be able, I want to be able to see people care about
Mhm.
what happens down at City Hall, care that their vote matters, care, there's so much that's going on that is difficult. For example, what the state's doing with Medicaid.
Mhm.
We voted for that. It seems like, what can people be involved with to better everyone, not just their world. And that's why I was really excited to see you become the alderman. It's wonderful to have people able to translate their work into the ultimate work of representing and taking care of wards. I would really like to be more involved with your ward or other wards so we can exchange ideas and different things so we can grow together as a city. Do you have any thoughts?
Yes, the first and foremost thing, I would invite you to consider changing your residence from south to north and moving to the Fifth Ward. You would be welcomed with open arms. Now that I can say that now that Brett has left the call. No, I'm just kidding. But no, let me give you some of my ideas along that question. I'm not going to bore you with my entire platform that I ran on, but I'm going to go to the top line item, and it's going to sound ultra nerdy, but I'm going to quote it exactly as I wrote it. My job one, top line job, is to listen to the residents of the Fifth Ward, to be held accountable by them, and to be guided by their needs. I know that sounds nuts, but that's a big jumping off point for me. Doing that, some of the things I did, and this is not anything, this is not braggadocio, but let me tell you what we did to engage voters in this last election cycle. My team and I knocked every single accessible door 8 times between the primary, before the primary, the start of the election cycle, through April the 6th. I know, Laurie, you're familiar with VAN, Voter Activation Network. Those voters that were VAN ones and twos, in other words, strong supports are ones, lean supports are two. We knocked every single one of those doors an additional 3 times leading up to the election to encourage people to come out to vote. Now, we did the very same thing through phone banking, the same thing as we did on the doors. Now, were we coercing people to come out to vote? No, not by a long shot. Did we say even one negative word about my esteemed opponent, a 10-year incumbent? No. What we were doing is telling my story of optimism and promise and hope. Remember, hope and change, and hope for the Fifth Ward. That's all we were doing. Now, it wasn't just that. As you know, in downtown St. Louis, there are a number of inaccessible doors. There are lots and lots of secure loft buildings. How do I know? I live in one of them on 13th Street in downtown. So what we did there, we had coordinators who lived in those buildings, who distributed my literature and helped get my message out. Now that I have been vaccinated with the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine through my healthcare provider, BJC. Toward the end of the campaign, I felt a little bit more comfortable doing in-person meetings. We actually hosted 2 cookouts, meet and greet cookouts. One in the northern part of the ward in St. Louis Place Park. One was in the southern part of the ward it's called City Park Apartments. It's a 149 unit senior tower building on Pine Street. So we did in-person events. We did pop-up fundraisers for small struggling businesses within the ward. We had a multifaceted approach. Everything was positive. It's all about telling the story. I appeared before our community associations, neighborhood organizations via Zoom. So the thing that I'm saying is you meet people where they are. You address the issues they're concerned about. And to me, that goes a long way toward getting people engaged and involved. And I'll tell you, the strategy worked. And people entrusted me with their votes enough to win by a margin of 52% to 48% against a 10-year incumbent. And Laura, you know me well enough to know I will be working my darndest to not let my constituents down, to exceed their expectations.
Thank you for that. I see we've been locked up with COVID and in our homes. I know I have hardly gone out over the past year. As we start going out into public again, we're going to be busy. So, City Hall rolls on and things roll on. I remember getting very focused in some of our work, for example, with the Affordable Care Act, et cetera, the stuff that we worked on, the highlights. Is there a way that you see that we can take these opportunities that are coming to get back together and work with certain issues and do canvassing, do types of work that is not exactly election related, but it's very much for the city as well as just our ward. I mean, I'm not just thinking about our ward, I'm thinking about our city.
Well, coming from a math and science and finance and accounting background, and being a certified project manager, I follow the science. I am Dr. Anthony Fauci's biggest fan. I am also a fan of the CDC guidelines. And I will tell you that, and I want to put that out there as a caveat. Until I was able to make my appointment, and by the way, sorry, let me get my big monitor going. My big monitor is my lighting source in my little Zoom studio. Let me get it fired back up so you might be able to see me. It went to sleep on me, but it'll wake back up. Anyway, so I follow the science, and I recommend that everyone does, to such a degree that, hang on, yes, there we go. To such a degree that I did not eat in a sit-down restaurant from mid-February of 2020 until about February of this year. I did take out, as executive director of the St. Louis Downtown Neighborhood Association. I'm very supportive of my small business restaurants in town. So I did takeout. I rode my little scooter to the grocery store and back, but always in mask from before leaving home until after I returned home. I had a strict protocol that I went by, and I've encouraged others to do the same. And I'm blessed that the protocol was successful. I managed to avoid illness from the plague. I'll just call it that. So I'm really into the science, and I never encourage people to go outside of their comfort level. But having said that, let's go to canvassing. How did my team and I canvass? And I began canvassing long before BJC sent me a note that I had an appointment coming up, and I took the first one that they had available. I jumped in my car and drove out to Ellisville. It was the quickest appointment they had. So I hustled out there, which isn't half an hour, 45 minutes from downtown, and got started on the vaccine series. But anyway, having said all of that, when we knocked on doors, my team and I, we did this following the science to the best that we could. We were masked up. When people answered the doors, we rang the doorbell, knocked, we stood back. We kept that 6-foot distance between us. We stayed outside of residences. We did the interactions out in the fresh air. So there are ways to do this. I'm not an epidemiologist. I am not a physician, but we studied the science and figured out how we can do that, how we could do things and have the greatest chance of safety. Now, I do realize that a lot of people have been vaccinated at this point, or at least they've started. But by the same token, we don't know who amongst us may be concerned and for some reason of their own choosing have not been vaccinated. They may be anti-vaxxers. So I think we are going to have to be real cautious for the foreseeable future. Probably, and I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news, I think we're going to have to be real careful probably for the remainder of at least 2021, especially with the mutations that have been coming into the country from elsewhere. So I think we always have to be careful. Like when I did the cookout events, we did it in masks, socially distanced, where people removed their masks to eat and drink, but they were out in the fresh air. And both of the events, there was significant wind blowing. So we were able to do it successfully. I've talked with members of my team at both locations. We are not aware of anyone who became infected, and I'm knock on wood. So there are ways to do these things. I'm not trying to tell you how to do them, but there are ways. I'd say do your homework, follow the science, and there are ways that we can start into closer interactions with our friends and neighbors without increasing rates of infection. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. I just really, I want people to see that the real danger in our country are Republicans that don't care about people. As Democrats, I know we have different levels of thought. It's a big tent, but at the same time, what do you see people that really want to get involved with issues that may not be something that, for example, close the workhouse. I'm thrilled that that's already being discussed.
Mhm.
But how can we help be part of communities that we are not part of? We have a very, I want to be part of the city. I want to understand things. How can we bolster each other and teach people how to work together when they have differences, but the big picture is really, I tend to look at the big picture. So I just want to say that I would love to be able to work, have it like exchanges with our ward, and do things with other people.
Well,
Um,
what I would recommend, since now this is scheduled not to continue forever because
no,
people voted to cut the number of wards in half. They voted overwhelmingly for that in 2012. But right now we have 28 alder people and the 29th being the president of the Board of Aldermen. I would recommend relying on the aldermen to help bridge those gaps. And I'll use a quote from my good friend Tina Sweet Tea Peel, as she calls herself. She focuses on three things in her work. Well, not just three, but three major things. One is community. The other is equity. And the third is breaking down silos. In other words, in her perception, and I would tend to agree with, we are very siloed in the city of St. Louis and the St. Louis region. Siloed in economic diversity. We're siloed in our thoughts, ranging from liberal to progressive to moderate to hardcore right wing. We're very siloed. And I think relying on the older people to help lead that. I was so happy that Brett beat me to the punch in sharing. We've just met each other. I've lived in North City for umpty-dump years. He's from South City, but we have met through the Board of Aldermen and we work well together. So I think the older people are going to be good resources to help bridge these gaps and help break down some of these silos that divide us. Just my thoughts.
that I appreciate that very much. We've been talking for a while, and I'm not sure if anyone else has any questions, but I also know we've been going for an hour and a half, and I appreciate that. But does anyone have any other questions or comments this evening? No? Well, how about this? Mr. Page, I always call you Mr. Page. James Page, I appreciate you very much. I'm so happy that you were able to come and talk with us. And also, looking forward to seeing good work and being excited about, sheesh, I never go downtown. I mean, I don't go anywhere. So I almost have to relearn how to enjoy St. Louis. And I'd like to look at it through a different lens. And progress is something that is so important for so many people in our city, and progress that is basic stuff, basic things that people can have. So thank you so much for being here, and I really hope that you will come see us again. And
I will be honored to do so.
And stay friends with Brett. It's important to know that my alderman is talking with someone like you and getting to know each other and sharing ideas and also getting some legislation that works for people. I really appreciate your time And everybody that was able to come here tonight, thank you. And for all the folks that weren't able to be here because of the mix-up with the link, just know that we've got it recorded and we'll work everything out. And I appreciate everybody that is here. Do we have anything else that we'd like to say or do? Carolyn, Matt, did you have anything?
Carolyn, you want to go ahead?
Well, I was going to say just quickly, our next central committee meeting is this Saturday. They're actually scheduled to be the last Saturday of the month moving forward. So I will, in the chat, I'll share that Zoom link info. If anybody wants to attend. I don't know that you would be recognized on the floor. That would be up to the chair. But certainly it's an open meeting, so I'll share that. The other thing, I guess, really the only news we have from Central Committee is that some of the subcommittee assignments are starting to be ironed out a little bit. It looks like I will be on what's the website social / probably branding is going to get folded in with that. We're still kind of working out the details because we've actually had a couple committee people resign, not either of us, but a couple of our colleagues. So things are still a little bit in flux, but it looks like I'll be helping out on the communication side, which makes sense because, as a lot of you know, that's what I do for a living. And then Matt, do you want to talk
Sure.
at all about yours?
Sure. And again, these are just proposed committees. So there's no formal committee assignments. They submit a list of names. I believe how this will work is that list of names will be voted on by membership. So I don't think there's anything that Carolyn or I has done so controversially that it would affect this, but nevertheless, that it's not confirmed until the full committee votes on them, which we believe is this Saturday. I volunteered to be in the finance committee or the bylaws committee. So for those who don't know, we're working with a set of bylaws from the mid 90s, I think 1996. There was a draft bylaws update about 10 years ago that didn't get passed. And they want to revisit that. I've been accepted to both of those committees, so I should be on both. I know in a previous 24th Ward Democrats meeting, there was some concern about, I'm just going to say loosely, rules, procedures, bylaws, particularly as it related, or specifically as it related to ward organizations that endorsed differently than Central Committee. I suspect that will be an issue that's talked about, but again, nothing has been made formal. And I will certainly have a voice in what the bylaws draft would look like and submit it to Central Committee for final approval. So I'll put my contact info in the group chat if anybody wants to talk to me a little bit more in detail. Again, we haven't met. There's nothing. This is just the group of people going to talk about stuff. Nothing's been decided yet, but I would be happy to have any kind of conversation about any of those topics as it relates to either the finances of Central Committee or about the bylaws, because I know that latter one is something that's been discussed in this ward organization as a matter of concern. So I would be happy to discuss with you and be prepared to provide input that not only I agree with, but hopefully this ward organization supports as well. Finance is different than fundraising. So that is a different committee. I'll just kind of keep you up to date on those developments. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I also, as a side note, congratulations, Alderman Page, since you are still here. I have a lot of friends in the 5th Ward they were very excited that you ran, very happy that you won. So thank you very much for representing them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Lori and team, thank you so much for the invitation. I thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you. If there's anything at all I can do, let me know. Let Brett know what we can do to work together to move the city forward. And trust me, I will get on it.
Yeah,
I believe
thanks
that.
again.
I know that. Thank you all very much. And
As it relates, before we sign off, as it relates to some ideas for the future of this ward organization, I think it would be, I love all of the things that we've talked about tonight. There's a few things that I think would be very, very helpful to, we'll say, recruiting efforts. Carolyn and I pretty much try our best to attend any of the 6 neighborhood associations, the meetings of the 6 neighborhood associations in the 24th Ward. Carolyn's committee created these little cards that she hands out at these meetings. They have my contact information, her contact information, and information on the 24th Ward Democrats. I would strongly recommend updating the 24wpd.com website. That is where we try to send people if you have an event, even if it's just a list of what your upcoming meetings are. That events page has the most recent. It looks like December 18, 2019 is the last thing on that, the most recent thing on that events. The link to signing up and becoming a member sends you to a dead Act Blue page. So little things like that, I think, would help your not just your visibility and streamline your ability to recruit new people. But if I'll be honest, I totally forgot about this meeting until Lori texted me today. So if there was some way that there were regularly scheduled meetings, Carolyn and I and other people, I know Jean did this a lot, and I'm sorry if I'm forgetting other people that did get out the vote outreach. We had poll workers that I know Austin and I have worked with. We have their contact info. We have people who live registered voters who live in the 24th Ward. I'd be happy to call them directly. Hey, we've got a meeting, such and such a date, such and such a time. Love to have you, hope to attend, but also to create some sort of, having an action plan. I do a lot of sales, and having a sales pitch, a pre-planned sales pitch would be very, very helpful in all of our recruiting efforts to get people in. Here's the things that we want to accomplish for 2021. Here's what we want to accomplish between now and midterms. Here's what we want to accomplish between now and redistricting. Some of those, it may seem foolish, but having those plans, talking about those plans, figuring out what it is that we want, gives us an opportunity to share that when we're in conversation with people who may and hopefully are like-minded, and get them interested in becoming involved. People don't like to do meetings just to do meetings. That's just my 2 cents.
I'd up it to about 5 cents. That's very helpful, and I appreciate I am not the website person, but we definitely need to regroup. We are having a board meeting soon, so we will be addressing these things. Thank you for bringing that.
Lori, one other thing I forgot on the Central Committee agenda. We are having a representative from Reform STL come and speak to Central Committee. That is the coalition that right now is collecting signatures, potentially for a ballot initiative. If they get their signatures, that would be a November special election potentially. So I know that's a group that I believe
Yes,
maybe next month might come and speak to this group.
yeah,
But, certainly Matt and I'll, we'll have a little bit of a better grasp on kind of what that group is trying to do after they speak to the committee on Saturday.
Okay.
So, another reason to jump in and be a fly on the wall for Central Committee if you'd like to hear from them as well.
well, thank you all very much, and I've learned a lot and also reflected a bit, and I just want you to know that other people have influenced me in ways that has truly given me the strength really to do things for our neighborhood, for our city. And I just, again, James Page, you have always been a mentor and a good friend. You always took care of people no matter what. You've always been easy to work with, and I'm hopeful for your ward that they know that already, but I want the rest of the city to know that too. So thank you again for being here with us. And I think that's it. I think we can say goodnight and have a nice evening, and go St. Louis. Let's get things going. I'm excited for our city. Let's keep going. Thanks
Thank you
again.
very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. I enjoyed being with you.
Thank you,
Thank you, James.
everybody. Thanks.